the chat from Dana and from
Hi, good afternoon,
Kayla.
everybody. Welcome to the 9th Annual San Pedro Film Festival. And today at 1:30, virtual reality, augmented reality discussion panel. So we have an echo there. Okay. We're waiting for Mary Duda, the moderator, to join us. But in the meantime, we have David. And I just want to direct everybody. Okay. So David, would you take over, please?
Sure. My name is David Bass Clark, and I'm the Director of AR/VR Research and Development at Unity College. I'm really excited to be here today. And again, maybe Mary might join us at some point, but I'm joined by some amazing panelists here. And so we'll just have you introduce yourselves. Kathy, do you want to go first? Just a quick introduction.
Sure, thanks, David. My name is Kathy Hackle. I am a futurist. I have been working in the AR/VR space for about 5 years now. Started off in cinematic VR and worked with companies like HTC Vive as a VR evangelist, most recently with Magic Leap, and I'm working currently on some interesting volumetric video projects.
Awesome. And I know Mary just joined us. Oh, perfect.
Hi.
There you go, Mary.
So how far along are we, guys? You know, we love technology. It's just so fantastico. Sorry, I had to do a quick computer change on my yacht here, which was not that easy, but hey, I got it done in 5 minutes.
Awesome. Kathy has introduced herself, but no, and I briefly introduced myself. So that's all we've done so far.
Okay, well, great. Well, I just want to welcome everyone to this great panel from what a diversity we have. And Damien, are you on a plane? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm speaking on behalf of Elove. He wanted me to fill in for him while he's on a flight to, he's on a flight to Lake Charles right now for a hurricane relief event, sponsoring some of the people who lost their homes out in Lake Charles.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So I think he's going to try to link in while he's on the plane, he told me.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. Well, let's just, I'm not sure all, I guess a couple of intros. Let's just carry on. Who would be next? Are we?
I'll go next.
Okay, great.
So I'm David Fox. I'm a game developer, game designer, and been working in games since the late 1970s, so over 40 years, and actually wanted to do location-based entertainment, immersive entertainment back in 1975 or 76 before it existed. So that's been my area of interest, but haven't been able to do as much until the tech kind of got here, and it's actually about here now. So that's it. I'll show some of what we're doing in a bit.
Awesome.
Great. Shall I go next?
Yes, and we have to have somebody who's representing the European Union, and that falls on Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana Maria Faneke. I am on a mission to help people to become the captains of their lives, and virtual reality is the most powerful tool to help me with my mission. That's why I founded a company called Captain VR.
Nice. Love it. And is Kathy here? Did we lose Kathy?
I sure am. I'm here. I already introduced myself.
Okay, great. Sorry, you couldn't see. All right, perfect. So is everyone introduced? It seems like we're good. So now what I'd like to do is to go and let everyone show a little bit of their work or what they're working on, or explain as this session really is about the advancement of digital technology as it relates to this crazy era we've been in with the pandemic. And you all know, as professionals, we all use things like Zoom, and now, of course, this streaming technology that we're on right now, which is awesome. but other people haven't. They've never had to do this before. And by the way, it's raining really hard where I am. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm on a yacht and it's pouring rain and I have no lighting and I'm going, oh, I got to go grab a light. This is nuts. I had the right position prior where I had my light perfect. Okay, so in any case, what a different time for us. So as professionals in the field, everything from the education side to the entertainment side, playing with tech, living tech, and now we have people grappling with having to use it. So as that relates, I'm sure this advances all of our interest in what we've been working in, and let's see how it relates to what's been happening. I mean, I would say that in the education side, David, why don't you start and talk about what you've seen, because people now need to know how to use this more than ever.
Great. Yeah. So I'm going to take just a few minutes. If you can't hear me, okay, just let me know. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it goes through here. You let me know when you see my screen. Just give me a verbal.
It's up.
Awesome. So I'm going to try to fly through this. I'm going to talk a little bit about extended reality, which kind of encompasses VR, AR, MR. I'm going to skip through some of this because we don't have a lot of time. But if you're not familiar with this is sort of the spectrum of extended reality. And our work here, or my work at Unity College, it really plays in all of these areas. So from the reality on the right all the way over to the left, which is virtual, and everything in between. And so Unity College is a college focused on sustainability, environmentalism. And so we do we do master's degrees, undergraduate degrees, certificates, associate's degrees, and all in that sort of niche. And we're growing and expanding in new ways. And sort of my job is, people ask me, we do marine science, conservation law, GIS, urban ecology. And people ask me, how do you mix those people that are doing, they're doing outdoorsy stuff, they're in the field, with virtual reality, which people think of games and movies and special effects and sort of that nerdy side of things. And it's more combined than you might think, because, you can study, let's say, law online fairly, it's a lot of text. There is some social components and some soft skills, but it's a lot of text when you study law. When you're studying, field-based conservation ecology or urban planning, you really need to be able to interact in a three-dimensional way. And so there's a lot of crossover there. So we do three things. We build and design 3D simulations. Sometimes they're on that spectrum of virtual reality to augmented reality, and sometimes they're just on a computer so that anyone can access them. We're empowering people to build their own experiences, and then we're researching and promoting that XR spectrum. We look at what we can accomplish that would be impossible to accomplish or very difficult with traditional educational modalities. We also make sure that everything is as accessible as possible. So when we build for that virtual world, we also build it on a computer so that it's device agnostic and anyone can access it. And then we look at, to what extent can XR replicate authentic practices that learners can master in that digital environment and then transfer into the real world. And so, this is a 360 video that we created on a sort of an island off the coast of Maine where we have our college, and students can click around this video, look up, look down, even go under the boat later on in the video, and they get to really feel what it's like and take an interactive 360 tour of this field station. It's this tiny, tiny rock island where they do a lot of research. So it gives them sort of that feeling that they're there. As I mentioned, we're empowering people to build tools. So we're building this tool. This is in beta right now, where people can drag and drop 3D models onto a floor plan, and then they're able to, to see that what that would look like in. Oops, sorry, it's out of order. Let's see if I can get it. They're able to look at what that would be like in 3 dimensions, see that whale, annotate that whale in 3 dimensions, and then publish that out to other students. So really interacting with it as in that simulation. And then I do want to show this too. There's a button that fills the room with water, and that whale will swim around above you with spatialized audio. So forgive me, it's a little hard sometimes to give the full effect of what it's like to be inside of these experiences, but I'll do my best with this remote challenge we have here. And then we have the virtual ocean, which we've created. give students the experience of what it feels like to be on an NOAA research vessel and actually do some distance sampling with whales. And so they're looking for whales, they're trying to identify whales at a distance by their spouts and actually estimate their distance using some tools. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip ahead. This is our crime scene investigation experience. We've built, again, something where students can touch the evidence in a certain order and get feedback from the system about what they touched and in what order, how they solved the crime, but also this is a forensics course, so how can they preserve that crime scene? And again, we built that. So I'm kind of speeding through this, but I want to get through and make sure all the panelists have time to do their own shtick here. So, but we built that again in VR, so there's the VR version as well. I'm going to skip through. We also built a virtual forest, but again, in the name of time, I want to make sure everybody has time. We are launching an introduction to virtual reality course in February that's going to ship an Oculus or a State Degrees of Freedom headset to everyone, and we're also launching some badges. So keep an eye out on our website. We want to teach the world at large how to use this technology, what it's all about. And finally, we have a hackathon, which we're doing just this month in November with Yale and University of Michigan and some other great partners. So if you're curious about any of those things, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll obviously be talking more, but that's a little bit of my work. I'm going to stop my screen sharing.
Well, thank you, David. And, you know, I have a question now. Can people take those classes online now because of the pandemic?
Yeah,
or
great
how does
question.
that work?
I work for distance education. So even before the pandemic, we were 100% distance online education only from day one. So everything we offer is online.
And then what kind of, is this, and then also, is this then certified as a undergraduate degree, or is this a special certificate?
So
or what
we
type
have
of degree
all
do they
kinds
get?
of degrees. Not all of them are exclusively XR experiences. We just started 6 months ago. And in that time, we built everything you saw, and we're building more. But so some of our experiences are master's degrees, undergraduate degrees, but we also have those badges I showed you, and that's about learning a little bit about XR. What is this thing called XR? How can I use it in my profession? And those are launching in the next couple of months. So those are brand new coming out.
Now, because of the pandemic, have you seen more interest in your classes? Or is it about the same?
We were growing before, and yes, we've grown even faster since the pandemic.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Great. Thank you, David. Let's go on to Dana. So Dana, could you share something with us, and let's see what you're up to over there with this. What is this now? Captain VR? I'm very intrigued. I'm sure all of our watchers are as well. It's like, what is that?
Okay, can you see the screen? And can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can hear you.
And can you see my
Yes, we
presentation? Great. So I've been sailing around the world, first as a crew member on big traditional sailing ships. You see me here in the mast, like the little thing in the mast on the left side, that's me in the North Pole on Svalbard. We were sailing there with tourists. I did that for 10 years, and there my love for behavior was existing, because on a ship you are very close on each other and you really see each other's true face very quickly. So the power of changing your mind and behavior was really interesting to me. And so I started to being a coach in 2010. I worked for Greenpeace, and in 2015 I started with virtual reality, because I saw someone on TV with virtual reality glasses on, and he almost fell from his chair while experiencing a VR experience. And then I saw the vision how I could use virtual reality to change people's lives. And I won the prize for the best virtual reality idea in the Netherlands in 2016. And in 2000, I started working on different topics, fear treatment, trauma treatment, but then stress management was the most thing I succeeded in. So I had a lot of results in stress management. I did tests with the insurance organizations FBTO. We helped their employees to deal with stressful situations, communications, and they, with a VR mood booster, a meditation tools with color, sound, and smell, we helped people to relax effectively in 10 minutes time, only 3 times a week. And we had significant result. We had a researcher who did the research with questionnaires. We had biofeedback, and we measured the heartbeat and HRV and the KPI measurement. So they had higher customer satisfactions. They had quicker conversations, and with customers, this was a client, how you say it, call center. So they were 8 hours calling with most of the time angry customers. And we had a lot of results. So we saved, if the whole company would, or this whole department would have used this tool, they would have saved 200,000 euro in that year. And also we hope to see then a decrease in the long-term sick leave. So, and because of that, and because of COVID, we needed to do something else, because COVID is also about how to stay healthy and how to be vital. So we started to doing market research, and this year on with big organizations to find out what is missing in the employees' vitality programs. So we are finding the results, analyzing the results right now, and we find out that reminders like drinking water in time, because water drinking is really effectively, and also standing up, because people are sitting like 8 hours a day and on bed chairs, especially now when people are at home and are not in the office. They have not a good working atmosphere at home. So we teach these people with reminders, with coaching through virtual reality and augmented reality, that they can they teach new behavior and existing behavior. So the behavior change stays. Anyway, more into that later. So this year I started working, or last year, with the educators in VR also, and we are creating events worldwide with big events where people can come together in virtual reality to come together and do workshops, but also talk about the COVID stress and anger and frustration. And we are providing people a safe space to talk about these times of crisis. And also I do this with EduHack, with Nick van Breda. We are helping organizations and businesses to come online with their business. And also we are doing this on other platforms besides virtual reality, Altspace and other platforms like Remo we use as well, and as well as Mozilla Hubs. And this Monday we're starting with Caitlin, really beautiful workshops on Empowered You, also empowered by the educators in VR. Caitlin Kraus is the director and community business developer from the Virtual World Society, and also from Mindwise. And we are doing a really great workshop together on Empowered You. So if you want to come, please sign up for this workshop. It will help you to be healthy, happy, and more prosperous in life. And this is what we do with Captain VR. We are helping people to become the captains of their lives, and virtual reality, but also augmented reality and other realities are helping us with this mission.
Oh, thank you, Dana. That's great. I love it. So we can go learn. We can learn how to do it with David and come to you and learn how to apply it in some way that's going to help us all through this pandemic, which is really, really cool. And I want to say we have such a great panel this year. Kudos to SpiffFest and to Ziggy for basically having this platform for us so we can share these thoughts and ideas. And we really think this is important information for people, and certainly for people who want to get in the field and say, well, what can I do? Well, this is a growing field that's growing by leaps and bounds. When I started teaching at UCLA, and I won't say what year, but I guess I will, and then you'll go, oh my God, this was back in 1985, 86 in computer graphics. No one in my class had a computer at home. Okay, that's when we started. And then by the time we hit 89, 90, everyone had a computer in their home to work on. Now, these are people who wanted to work on the computer. So that's how fast the revolution happened. And every year, and I taught there 10 years, students would ask me, is it too late? You're going to laugh. 1990, is it too late? 92, is it too late? 95, is it too late? And I'd always say, we're just beginning. And now what do I say? We're just beginning. So on that note, let's move on. Let's go over to another creator, David Fox. And David, what you got for us?
Okay, I'm going to show you, let's see if this works. Okay, can you see the
Yes.
screen? Okay, so I just want to go briefly through what my background was and what I'm working on now. So I joined Lucasfilm Games back in 1982. I was employee number 3. Lucasfilm, for those who don't know, is a company that did Star Wars. That became LucasArts in 1990. And while I was there through 1992, I was mostly doing graphic adventure games. And these are some of the games I worked on, one before Lucas, and most of the rest are at Lucas. And Thimbleweed Park was something we did a few years ago with friends Ron Gilbert, Gary Winnick, who used to work at LucasArts with me. I've also worked with my wife on a series of books and apps, and the most recent one was RubeWorks, and it's the official Rube Goldberg invention game. And most people know of the name Rube Goldberg. The name's actually in the dictionary. It's a comically involved, complicated invention laboriously contrived to perform a simple operation. But it's actually a guy. That's Rube Goldberg. He was a cartoonist, and most people know him as a cartoonist. He died in 1970. And he's famous for Rube Goldberg machines. Most people know them from, say, YouTube videos where you see a chain reaction of crazy things happening. Roughly maybe 400 million views across some of the main Rube Goldberg machine videos. Back in 2013, or actually it was earlier, when I wanted to do my next game, I knew I wanted to do kind of a chain reaction machine game, and I looked at what games were already out there at the time and saw a bunch, but all of them were described as Rube Goldberg-like. And I wondered if anyone had tried to do the real thing, and why not? So I found a website for rubegoldberg.com, reached out to them with an email, and the next morning got a phone call from Jennifer George, who turned out to be Rube Goldberg's granddaughter. And we created a relationship, and that resulted in the game RubeWorks, which came out almost exactly 7 years ago. And we did it for mobile and desktop back then. We licensed this cartoons. Here's one called Simple Way to Get Fresh Orange Juice Upon Awakening. And the way we would do it was we used Unity. We did it in 3D. Unity actually funded the game. And the idea was you would have all the objects that were in the room got pushed into your toolbox. And then you had to figure out by clicking on them to get hints about what each one did, connect the objects with string, and then use the test button to see whether it worked. And here's a, can you hear sound from this? So that was the mobile version. So earlier this year, we decided I wanted to adapt it to work in VR and focus mostly on the Oculus Quest. The idea is that you're in Rube Goldberg's workshop. We wanted to take the existing game and put it into a shadow box that you can, kind of like a little dollhouse where you could play with it and do things. Here's the video of where we are a few minutes ago with the game. You can still touch, but now you're doing it directly with your hand. You can get the hints. You can still pick up, get progressive hints on each object to figure out what it is and where we're going. And essentially, it's a puzzle. And then you pick up objects directly and put them into the scene. There's a snap to function to make it easier to put them in the right place. And then you tie them with string, basically with your finger. And push the test button. And since we aren't going to do a camera move like we did in the flat version, we have a spotlight that gives you an idea of where the action is. And give you the captions again that Rube Goldberg wrote, follow the action. And that's it. So hopefully this will be out sometime early next year. We're still working it, and hope to have it on all VR platforms.
That's great, David. I love it. An awesome example. And how did you come up with the name Electric Eggplant? That's what I was pondering.
When I was at LucasArts and Lucasfilm, I always loved the name of Industrial Light and Magic, ILM. That's the special effects group. And I wanted something that had the kind of a combination of whimsy and things that just didn't quite go together. And I think my wife came up with the name. We like eating eggplants, so electric eggplant. Okay, that just felt right.
Yeah, great example, and I love the idea of taking that content and making it alive and making it into a sample. That's a really great illustration of what can be done.
Much more fun in VR than watching it on a screen too.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's a great example because you're showing actual function, which most of the VR samples out there, as we all know, a lot of it just because there is a medium doesn't mean you're very good in it, right? And it takes me back to my early CG days, and I have to reference again that I would have people that thought they were artists. And I'm looking at their work going, a collage in Photoshop is not an artist. I'm sorry. So same thing in VR. We look at samples and people shoot in 360, and suddenly they think, oh, look, wow. And so the technology becomes the wow factor. It's kind of like Marshall McLuhan, right? The medium is the message. So the wow factor is the 360, but the content is shall I say sucks? But yeah, I'll say it.
There's an example I was giving. I wrote a paper talking about VR back in 1992, where everyone was really focused on this new technology and how fast it was going to be mainstream. Didn't happen, but I knew it was going to come, and the demos I was seeing were very much, kind of flat, not very interesting. And I kind of used the example of as a kid, growing up with black and white television in the 50s, and then our aunt got a color television set, and it was just such a huge advance. And we just sit there watching commercials because those were the only things that were on color at first. And the Rose Bowl parade or whatever, anything that we could find in color, and that was the magic of color that was great, not the content. Until after a few months of that, then all of a sudden it was boring. And just because it's in VR, it doesn't mean it's going to be compelling until you actually initially maybe because of the wow factor, but after a short time, it's not going to be.
Right, exactly. So let's go to Damien. Are you here with us? It doesn't look like it, right? So because Kathy, we would have you up next. Is that so? Damien, are you? I think Damien's not on, although I saw him texting. So, but he's not in. I know he has a demo he was going to run. So let me see where he's at. In the meantime, Kathy, let's hear about all the amazing work you're doing as a futurist. And I know you've been working on some exciting projects and giving advice to thought leaders, which is really great. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll try to find Damien.
And thanks for inviting me to be here. Are you guys hearing me okay? Is there an echo? I think there might be an echo, but very excited to be here. I think most of the folks that do know me from my content on LinkedIn, but a lot of people don't necessarily know that I actually am a content creator and I work on a lot of different things. So I kind of wanted to share with you guys a little bit of the story and then show you one of the things that I'm working on that's quite interesting. So I've been working with a team in Costa Rica on a VR experience to commemorate the abolition of the army in Costa Rica I think it's more than 70 years ago. So, you know, Costa Rica, I'm originally Costa Rican. I'm Costa Rican American. Costa Rica is a country that does not have an army, hasn't had it for many decades. And they just changed the holiday for December 1st, celebrating the abolishment of the army. And we were working on a historical VR experience for a museum in Costa Rica. And we wanted to include an augmented reality side to this story. And we were going to do a volumetric scan, so a hologram in essence, of the former First Lady of Costa Rica, who was still alive. She was 102 and a half years old. We were getting everything organized to do the volumetric scan, and she passed away from COVID. So this experience, having worked in this amazing project called El 48, the 1948, you know, kind of doing this and trying to capture, you know, that story, her story, to kind of live on in history, kind of lit the path for me for what I'm doing right now. So I'm working with a volumetric studio here in DC called Avatar Dimension to create one of the world's first historical preservation holographic or volumetric programs. So what we're trying to create is an actual program where we volumetrically scan, you know, historical figures, political figures, and, you know, artifacts that want to be, you know, artifacts, let's say, so that can be maintained in the future. I mean, there's already photogrammetry and 3D scans, but we want to actually do volumetric scans. So there's actual volumetric video of these elements, and there's holograms. So if you've been following the news, you might have heard that is this week. Yeah, this week or last weekend, Kanye West gave Kim Kardashian, and I normally don't include Kanye West and Kim Kardashian in my talks, but Kanye West gave Kim Kardashian for her 40th birthday a hologram of her dad. It wasn't necessarily a hologram. It was not a volumetric scan of her dad. It was kind of an AI kind of recreation of her dad and what he would say, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're trying to do is actually do these actual volumetric videos or scans of people and preserve that in history, because I do see 3D and volumetric video as kind of helping become the libraries of the future, being part of the museum in the future. You know, history and heritage are 3D, and they're kind of an endangered species of sorts. And I don't think that the mandate has been ever this important to kind of retain those stories, especially if you're Jewish, if you have family who are Holocaust survivors. You know, there's been programs. There's not a set program, but there's been things done to kind of do holograms of them. So it's a race against time, in all honesty. And I'm extremely passionate about this program that I'm putting together with Avatar Dimension here in the DC area. So let me kind of show you. I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you a little bit about one of the first projects we did. This is not the historical preservation one, but I just kind of want to show you one of the things that we did with the Center of Creative Arts in St. Louis with volumetric video. So let me share my screen. So can you guys see my screen? So this is an actual tour.
Hello, and welcome to COCA, the Center of Creative Arts. I'm Kelly Pollack, COCA's Executive Director. Well, actually, I'm Kelly's hologram. And it's my pleasure to offer you this sneak peek of COCA's beautiful expanded facility. Our mission is to enrich lives and build community through the arts. We want this to be your creative home. Whether you're a seasoned professional or enthusiastic amateur, COCA is here for you. We look forward to the time when we can all gather together again. But for now, I invite you to put on your magic shoes to explore and be inspired.
All right. And then you just kind of take the tour of the building, etc. I'm not going to do the whole tour, but I'm going to take you guys towards the end because we have another hologram towards the end of the tour.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Windsor, Artistic Director of Theater at COCA, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the stunning Catherine B. Burgess Theater. Whether it's aspiring students or national artists, in this House of the People, multi-generational audiences will enjoy some of the most inspiring performances from around the country. This community space is vital to fulfilling our mission to put unmatched creative opportunities and thought-provoking theatrical experiences right at your fingertips.
Hold on, let me stop sharing. All right, were you guys able to hear that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Cool.
That's one of the first projects that we, Avatar Dimension, worked on. But I wanted just to show it. I mean, this is not the historical one, but I think you get the idea of the things that can be done, both on a website or through a phone and through augmented reality glasses. Eventually, when we are wearing these augmented reality glasses and moving away from phones to glasses, the type of content we're going to be able to see around us. So very, very passionate about the work that we're doing with that program. I also kind of wanted to share that I'm a member of the Television Academy, and I'm specifically part of the executive committee for the Interactive Media Peer Group. And that's the group that kind of gives the award, not the only one, but responsible for some of the virtual reality and augmented reality awards when it comes to innovation. So we, this year was really interesting, because we actually deliberated. We decided who got one of the awards, and one of the awards went to The Line, which is a VR experience in Oculus that uses hand tracking. It's a beautiful experience. So I've got that side where I'm actually looking at this content, judging it, thinking through what is the future of content. And then the projects I'm working on where it's a lot of holographic work, volumetric video really is the right term, and kind of how we preserve things. And I was having a conversation a couple of days ago, and I said, look, I think that from what I see, I live in DC, and I went to the Library of Congress not too long ago, and they had a copy of the Gutenberg Bible. And from what I see, being in VR, from what I see as a futurist, I said, look, I feel that those of us that are working in VR, those of us that are working in volumetric video, in augmented reality, 3D photogrammetry, we are the printing press of the future. We are creating these things so that they can live on when we move from flat screens to actual glasses, and you'll need spatial content. So I'm very passionate, as you can tell, for what we're doing here and what we're discussing here.
Great, thank you. That's a great example too. And what you're bringing up is so important. It's a great subject, because in the future, we all know that we're going to be having not textbooks of history, right? I mean, think about it. When the internet started, like, who said it had to be pages? I've always been like, as an artist myself, and I'm a fine artist as well as all the other things that I do, I was looking at it like, why is it pages? Because engineers designed it. So when the creatives get in, then we actually are able to create what it can be used for. Mm-hmm. I mean, the closest we ever got for something on the computer being somewhat intuitive was the early Apple interfaces, calling a file with a file folder, as you know, which is like, seems obvious now, but it wasn't then. And so having common objects in an uncommon world is really where true design lies for the creator. And having the future where you're showing historical figures in context of history is extremely important, because believe it or not, and it's hard to believe in this year, that we actually still have the deniers of World War II concentration camps as if it never happened. I mean, how much more evidence do you need? You've got the great. I mean, it just is so profound, the effects of media and behavior and the psychology of that. And one of my things, of course, is to always have what I always call it, put the virtue into the virtual. Mm-hmm. Because if without that, we're going to cause horrendous problems for people believing things which may be less than actual, let's say. I'm trying to be PC here, okay, on final election day and Yahoo. But okay, that's all I'll say. Yeah. So now Damien, I know, wanted to show a video. He's been working with Public Enemy, and he's also out doing, you know, and you saw his picture on the site with the mask with their logo on it. And so he's working on distribution of those masks with them. And he had a music video he wanted to show of them. And Damien has a very strong presence in the music industries, and as well as dealing with charities and nonprofits. And as earlier his associate said, he's on a plane because they were raising quite a large sum to help the hurricane victims with not only food from local supermarket supplier, but also PPE, personal protection equipment from another supplier, because it's there, you know, I think it's 400 homes devastated. It's, you know, this is all going on while everything else is happening. So I know he's off doing that, so we may have to excuse him if he doesn't get back on. But then let's move on to our next segment, which is really what each of us have touched on, and that is what we see as the future and the advancement of the digital worlds, if you will, or digital technology, AR, VR, and yet to be known. As we know, you know, it's funny, right? All of us in the field, and some of us have been in, I think David Fox and I may be the veterans around this board, but we've been through the evolution from the beginning of when we first saw, you know, the operating systems, and there were a couple other ones. I know it's hard to believe there was something, IBM had an operating system. Do you remember that, David? Anyway, that was back in the day. So, and every time we always think that's it, like IBM, that's it. There'll never be anything but IBM. Oh, wait, no, it's Apple. There'll never be anything else. Oh, Google, now it's Google. They'll never, but guess what? There is always advancement. Who would have thought IBM would have been superseded, right, by Microsoft and Apple? And who would have thought Apple would have made it when Microsoft was dominant? And Microsoft gave $100 million to Apple to save their, you know what's, back in late, what do anybody remember? I think it was late 90s, right around there. Yeah,
95 maybe.
yeah. So now here we are. Now we got the dominance of Google and Twitter and Facebook, and guess what? Their kingdoms too will come to an end. There will be something new. And what will that be? In other words, for the people that may be listening to this now or will listen to it on the record later, you know, there are so many innovations that are yet to be had. And during times of crisis, we come up with new formats. And Kathy, what you're saying is so important also. Historical figures, remembrance of it. And yeah, that was I don't know, the Conway thing. Yeah, I can't believe we're saying his name in this conference, but yeah, indeed, he did do a pseudo hologram for a birthday present. Quite interesting, right? Just shows how the fringes are coming to be in the fray. The fray, I should say, is now coming into the mainstream.
Well,
so with that,
bringing that into the conversation, and I mean, and what if someone like Kim Kardashian that has everything she could possibly desire from from a material perspective? So
yes,
I'm sure there's more people lining up.
Exactly. It's like now what? And so we will, and you know, in terms of the Holocaust, as you know, the USC Center here in Los Angeles has done 3D mapping of Holocaust survivors. They've used it's kind of like a holodeck. It's about don't recall how many cameras. If someone knows, it's like 35 cameras, and they put the survivor in that bubble, and then they video them, and then they reconstruct it. And then they also do it with somewhat of an AI component. It's really an expert, people get confused. There is something called expert file system, kind of an expert system, which is not AI, but everybody calls it AI, which just means that they have recognition of word phrases, which then combine to the answer. And so that's not true. That's not AI. But in fact, let's just say what AI is. AI is when you come up with something that hasn't been. Does that make sense? In other words, it's like creating a thought. And when the computers start creating thought, like they did, wasn't it Facebook, guys, ladies, Facebook that had the two bots that started talking to each other and decided they had their own language, and Facebook got so freaked out they shut it down because the two bots that they were doing decided it was more efficient to talk to each other in a language that didn't exist according to the programmers. Now that's real AI because now they have their own language. They're like, what's that? We don't know. They're talking to each other and they're doing things that we didn't tell them to do. So moving on.
Yeah, Mary, just had from Pandora Bots, Kooky. I don't know if you know who she is, but I mean saying she, right? She's an AI, but it was her, and then BlenderBot, which is a Facebook bot, Blenderbot kind of on Twitch, having a constant conversation, went on for like 4 days, and people would go in and vote as to who was more human. It was quite interesting to watch. I'll post I'll share some links that maybe we can put in the comments, because it was a really interesting thing to watch from my friends at Pandora Bots. So
great. So let's look at oh, I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, I think, in terms of saying in a different way. Someone else said to me recently, it seems like people are saying with VR, AR, MR, it's 2 years from now, it's going to be there. We're going to have it, 2 years from now, and then 2 years comes and it's 2 years later. But I think for those of us in the industry, I think, there's been real advancement in the last 10 and the last 20 years. And I think when we look at platforms like Oculus that are $299 and really have quite a stunning, impressive experience out of the box, no phone required. It's really immersive. The content isn't quite there, as Kathy has sort of alluded. We're building content all the time, but I think taking a step back and going, we in some ways we are there. There's a long way to go, but we've got a lot of the foundations right here happening, and I find that to be really exciting. And then just two ways I go off that. I'm curious how people, this is the way I'm sort of thinking about all of this. One is, when I see what Kathy's doing, I think about art as sort of I think about art as a category, and I start thinking about questions about art and then also about utility. And so and kind of in between there, I look at it and I go, wow, it makes me wonder, who is the avatar looking at? We get these new questions that we've never had before, where you're spinning around the avatar, but it's a little odd to have this sensation of not being looked at. And so it starts to make us think about, well, what could that be used for differently than our mediums we have today? So I think it's both art, and we also think about utility, and education can come in the middle there somewhere and help to try to answer some of those questions, or even just start asking some of those questions. So it's just really exciting.
That's a very interesting point. And I think there are some, and I know actually there are some studies going on now as to where is the AI looking, where are the robotics looking, and there's something called, and you may be familiar with this, called the peripheral learner. And so we are always learning. We see in a way that yet hasn't been replicated, because we're not just seeing 45 degrees, we're not actually even seeing 180, because we're continually seeing and what we might term a 360 view ourselves. And as we do that, we're learning through peripheral, through the side of our eye, if you want to look at it that way. We're actually learning by being immersed in the environment, which is why my thesis has always been, once we have full immersion, we can actually have a very robust remote learning, because we would learn in our method of learning, which is, the Gardner studies are maybe 7 to 9 different ways that we learn. But in VR, it affords us to be inside that environment to learn. And if you don't think that works, then look at NASA, who I've worked with extensively. NASA are they landing on the moon all the time? Are they taking their ship up all the time? No, at the Space Center up here up in Mountain View, they have the simulation that is a vertical simulation, and I'm kind of glad I never went on it. I was going to. It's like 2 floors up, guys. And so basically, they have a little pod you sit in, and if they want to get you sick in 2 seconds, they're going to throw you. You're going to spin and go straight up and straight down and all around. And every shuttle astronaut was trained on that system, and they had crappy graphics, by the way. And I was going to go in and I was assisting them on how to upgrade that. But in any case, what I'm saying is that we learn through simulation. Simulation is actual experience to the brain. So with that thought, let's and Dana, this stress, come on, like we're saying, and let's not get too stressed out, but everybody is stressed out over what's been going on with being inside, with the advancements of technology, kind of forced on the general population that really wasn't ready to roll. I mean, they just want to have their entertainment and their communication, but were they ready for this, for this remote learning, for remote working, for what is really entailed in this type of pandemic, which is not going to go away for some time, as the experts are saying?
Yes, no, of course, no, nobody was ready for this. But people do adapt quickly, although they are like really slowly adapting first to the Zoom experience and to the Office 365 experience, and then they slowly come to more exciting environments like virtual reality. So that's what we are helping people. We are helping organizations to help them to experience these interactive environments, to show them how you can put workshops in them or do team building in them. We use, for example, open platforms like Altspace, Mozilla Hubs, and other platforms that we use for co-creation and but also for presenting and speaking in public. And it's really interesting that but what I see, you need to take the companies by the hand, the businesses, the organizations and people. You need to really show them and train them and really take them by the hand to get them into the space or helping them to how to use this new technology. If they don't know exactly how it works, they are like a little bit there's no control. And especially in these times of crisis, when people are like triggered in their fight flight freeze mode, people are not easy to pick up things that are making their life like technology, new technology is overwhelming then. So you need to really help people first to de-stress and really take them by the hand to get them used to this new technology. And this is what we do. And we provide then with, for example, educators in VR, we working together. And we provide every week workshops where people can come together from all over the world to talk about this subject, about the lockdown, about the frustration and anger they have, but also about the opportunities you have right now, because this is a new way of living we're going to go at. And I think this could be really interesting if we can. It was to happen anyway. This new technology is so exciting and taking jobs away also for many people. And now this time is making this process quicker. So we can transform now in this time we were ending up anyway, and we can now choose more lives that are suitable for us with more passion and love for the things that we really want to do in life. So I think this is a really great opportunity as well.
Do you see a different perspective from the European perspective versus the American perspective? I mean, aside from all the turmoil we've been going through here with our elections.
Yes, maybe the people in Holland, for example, are more really down to earth, more, but also they don't really care about what governments think. We are like more rebellious people. I think European are more rebellious people, and they. But there's a division. How you say divided? People are divided. So we have that a lot in Holland as well, but I see that around the world as well. So that's what happens now everywhere, and that's, I think we need to, yes, talk to each other and express our feelings to each other, so we can see that we actually really won and we're all dealing with the same issues worldwide now, and we can use this force to really create a better world, I believe. So this is what I'm promoting all the time with my workshops and with my work.
Great. And so David Fox, obviously I want to hear a comment from you on how you see the next generation creating.
Well, something that David said about how accessible the technology is becoming. I got the first Oculus Quest. I got a HTC, the Vive set, a couple of years ago. It's okay, this is it. And I had to get a PC because I'm a Mac person. I had to get a PC, and I just the resistance to just turning it on, using it, and waiting for the PC to do all its updates, and then it was slow sometimes because it was doing crap in the background. When the Quest came out and I got this, I said, wow, I could just put this on. I could be anywhere. I could do it. And my wife got into it, and she actually started playing some games like Beat Saber and loved it. And so that's around the time that I decided, okay, I got to adapt our game and to VR. And that seemed like the shortest way to get in there is with a 3D game we already had, just start working with it, and then use that as a learning curve for me to learn more about it. But at the price point that it is now, $300 is remarkable, especially for the experience. And I got a Quest 2, and it's other than the fact that my eyesight isn't perfect, so I have to adjust stuff. But for people with really good eyesight, it's a fabulous experience. And I'm assuming most of the people who are watching this have experienced VR, but if not, anything you've ever seen as videos of VR is not VR. And you have to do it. You have to actually feel what it feels like. There's this initial wow moment when you are literally transported into a different space. We call it, the term presence, where you feel like you're actually there. And memories of games in VR are so different than the memories of games on a flat screen, where I know I'm playing in my office, and you can kind of like watching a movie, you can kind of get sucked in and forget things. But in VR, you actually feel like you've been somewhere else, and you feel like the memory you have of somewhere else of a VR thing is you're in a new space. Enough senses have kicked in that it's real. So I'm excited just because the tech has come a huge long way from like the first time I tried it in the early 90s, where there was a lot of lag when you turn your head, and easily get motion sick. Like you turn your head and the picture kind of do this afterwards. And that was with $1 million systems, and now with $300 little device, you get a much better experience than those ever were. So I have no doubt the tech's going to continue to advance and get easier and lighter and cheaper and more immersive. And I'm just so aware of how we're really in a learning curve of just the idea of taking a game straight over from a 2D experience over to 3D doesn't work. You have to really look at all the different things and what changes. In doing the Rubrics game, where originally you're touching on a screen and pushing things around like this, now when you're actually reaching in and grabbing something, I'm looking for all the ways that to kind of break my expectation, my experience of the game. I'm so used to the old way that a tester will say, "Oh, how come this is supposed to be early morning? Why aren't you using early morning light?" And so having the light coming in, the fact that when we built the game, it was in 2013, which meant we had to target 3-year-old iPhones, and now so 10-year advance in technology, the systems are way more powerful. So you can do a lot more stuff with that. I think the learning experience of, especially if it's a learning game, the experience of doing it is going to stick with you a lot more than on a flat screen, because you're actually in the
Right.
in the
Well,
learning
actually,
experience.
that's right, David. In the learning experience, your brain, as you do something, it doesn't know the difference of the virtual or the actual. It depends upon if you're more of a kinetic learner, then perhaps you may not learn it as well, because you need to sort of feel that vibrational touch in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But that, of course, is being solved as well. There's ways to have force feedback and different methods. But all the research for many years, and the first study was the military study back in the 80s, that basically said early 80s, when they tried to do interactive. Now we're just talking not VR, even just interactive. When they did it, they found that 80% retention rate of learning. And so they decided to change over everything into interactive learning. And back then, they were called disco discs. If you know the RCA disco disc, which was the 12-inch platter, and you used 2 screens. And you basically, some of the early things in the 80s, the later 80s, was with Apple and the BBC, when they did a whole course on the DNA theory being discovered. And they used a documentary film. This is how they did it. And there's still merit to this today. I mean, this really was very, very innovative. In the late 80s, they used the BBS documentary film, docudrama on the DNA in discovery. They then had on a separate disc the interaction parts. So they had two discs, two screens, and you basically could click on it, and then up would come all the information about the tools they used, about the way the telescope worked, about everything that was in the movie. So now what worked was that, and you guys, I want to have your comments on this, but the idea, I've always said, we all know this, I would have to say, is generally, storytelling is the highest form of learning. And this is the International Film Festival. So we're talking about storytelling is the highest way of learning. You tell a story and people remember the story. It's from ancient times, right? So if you tell a story like the discovery of DNA as a docudrama, and then you have an interactive component where I can now explore more. So what happens? It's a tremendous learning experience because I'm engaged in the story and I'm wondering about the tools, and now I can see about that, and then I can go off into learning more about it. So I think that as we talk about true immersion within a 3D VR experience, let's say, versus, and maybe we should explain this, some may not understand, there's 360 experiences, right? And those are basically like a panorama of a picture, in a sense, a 360 panorama, but it's not 3D. So a 3D 360 is where you have your eyewear on that's 3D, that can actually see the imagery with depth perception, which is 360. So those are the two different areas. Now, most films, right, are being done in not 3D 360, but and go to Avatar. If you're not familiar with what I'm saying, a film like Avatar and many others, and there are many now versions that you pay extra to see them in what is called 3D. Now, we may disagree if that's truly 3D, but in some cases, it's sort of what we call pseudo 3D, meaning it looks as though the very first ones I worked on Epcot, oops, dating myself, and Kodak had a 360 film. Okay, you walked in the theater and it was a circular film, and they had 3D 360, and you wore polarized glasses, which hasn't really changed much, has it, in how many years? And so Kodak's, birds flew out, so that's Epcot, and Disney, and of course installations. I worked on World's Fairs as well. World's Fairs have these kinds of things because they're one-offs, But with that said, what do we see? And this is, this is a great panel, great perspectives of different areas of industry. And so I'd love to hear each of you kind of giving kind of final thoughts on the future for the next or even people now wanting to change careers because they feel like, I want to get into this industry. And this industry is so broad, obviously, just based on who we have here. It's extremely broad because now the applications are advancing. And that's what this panel is about. The applications of technology and VR, AR, MR, and all the rest of it are advancing according to the needs of society in so many levels, whether it's learning, again, playing, functions, utility, living. So let's just start. So let's start off with David and give me your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, there's an echo there. So I would say there was a lot to unpack there. But one of the things you mentioned, and I think it's interesting, but maybe perhaps not so important for this conversation to talk about 360 video. There's interactive 360 video. You can overlay 3D objects on 360 video, and then there's things created in Unity engine or Unreal, and those are what you were describing. And then 3D movies. I would argue when we're doing XR, we would have to change the perspective. We would have to be able to walk in the movie and shift our perspective left or right, or get underneath something and look up. And I haven't seen that yet too much, although I'm sure that's happening. But that's the next step, the next evolution of where I think movies might go. But it brings up a more important point, which is you talked about, in the 80s about having two screens and having kind of discrete experiences. And I think what this does is it moves beyond, you become a part of the story. So you don't know where the story begins and ends, where you begin and end, where your body begins and ends. So when you look down, it's not your hand anymore. It's the character's hand, but it is yet your hand. And so we blend what is your experience with the story, and that's the power of the medium. And I think with education, we're at this point where we're building scrappy things, and I think we're empowering our learners to become part of this industry. We would hire, we've got opening, we want to hire more and more people to do this, and to be honest, there aren't enough in the field. So we're both training and also hiring these people. Like, for example, I really need someone who does Houdini. And why do I need someone who does Houdini? Because we need blood spatter in our CSI crime, and I need really advanced fluid dynamics, and I don't have that expertise. So like, we're hiring from all different industries, but then always with this point of what you said, which is story. How do we create a story and then put our learners in that story and then measure the effectiveness? Because I think what happens is, the idea is, it's not a panacea. It's not like you throw XR or VR, AR at something and it's magically better. Sometimes it's worse. Often it's worse. So the question is, what do we want to, what's the learning objective? What do we want, or what's the empathy objective? What do we want them to feel? What do we want them to learn? And then we build backwards from that. And I would love to, we don't have much time today, but I think as an industry, we need to come together and challenge each other. So I would love, Kathy and Dana and David to look at our stuff and say, man, this is not work. That doesn't work in that way. Or how does that work? And I want to be able to challenge the industry, because it's so important when we're in this early stage to say, how is that working? Is that effective? Is that doing what we want it to do? Because with movies, we know what works. We've been doing it for 100 years, right? We really know. With this, we don't really know yet in a lot of ways what works, in my opinion. So that's what's exciting.
That's a great point, David. To continue these conversations and to let the people that are new to the industry to hear these conversations, because too many times they get hung up with the technology and not with the content and the providing of effective content. And also something else David Fox said, which I wanted to also remind people about, is the idea of effectiveness in design. And this is what you're bringing up too, effectiveness in design. And, to be effective in game design or in any kind of altered experience or content in general, right? Design wise, just as design or branding, whatever it might be. In game design, I always said it was like finding a common object in an uncommon world and letting you think you found it, I mean, for engagement. But okay, but let's move on. So Kathy, give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would say, David, I have a term that I use for what you're describing, and I believe that in XR, what we're doing is story living. We're not storytelling. We are telling stories, but we're allowing people to live through those stories. So, it's actually taking that idea of presence and story living through them. So I think that might resonate with the folks that are watching this. So I want to add just 3 quick things. First, the PSA. And every Christmas, I get calls from friends saying, oh, my kid wanted a VR headset and they put it on the Christmas list and they're sold out. So if you want to get a VR headset, get it now, because tis the season for VR. The VR Oculus Quest made it into the New York Times holiday gift guide of 2020. Right. Get it now. I don't work for Oculus or anything, but if you don't wait till later when your kid's like, I want VR, and it won't be under the tree. So that's my PSA. Then I would say the other thing, because I do live in DC, I always try to share with folks what's happening here. On Capitol Hill, we have something called the Reality Caucus. So there's an actual VR, AR, mixed reality caucus on the Hill that is exploring and trying to understand these technologies. I think that's really important. So one of the Congress people on that caucus introduced the bill last year called the HR 4103, which is about using VR and AR and exploring it for professional development and training for federal employees. It's going to be reintroduced hopefully with the next Congress that comes in. So I wanted to share that because I think it's really important, if you are in the US, that you understand that this is something that's making it slowly to Capitol Hill. And then the third thing, you ask about the future. I'm a futurist. I try to think long term. I've been exploring a lot of work related to the metaverse, or this kind of merging of the physical and the digital, when we kind of will wear glasses, when the world becomes machine readable, clickable, likable, where we kind of meet those machines. So definitely check out some of the things I've written in Forbes about the metaverse. And I'm currently exploring a lot of things related to the direct to avatar economy, which means people, we're living in these virtual spaces. L'Oreal just launched a digital makeup line for when we're doing these types of events. I wish I had it because I would look so nice. So that kind of what I call direct to avatar economy, I think is quite interesting and something that creatives need to look into, especially storytellers. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to add. And I probably have to jump pretty soon, so I apologize for that.
We're just about done, actually, but we want to have another comment from Dana as well. Dana?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't muted. Yes, just a short note. There's been a lot of scientific proof by, for example, Skip Rizzo is one of
I know Skip.
The man. Yes, he's so great, and he did so much research on exposure therapy and PTSS, and now also sexual harassment. He's doing, and he's doing great stuff. He's currently now at the VR Days in the Netherlands having a talk about this subject, and he provided a lot of research, and therapy with virtual reality is so effective. And I saw that also in coaching. I've been coaching since 2015 with virtual reality, and it's super effective for reaching your goals and reaching your the happiness and conquer your fears in a really effective way. And it's not only with virtual reality. You need also you need the person behind it, like the coach or the therapist next to it. But we are more and more going to the smart technology that a coach or a therapist is also, people can do it a lot on their own. And I think that's really great that people get by this technology. You don't need you can sorry, you learn so quickly that you are you teach yourself to be very empowered. And also with the studies of PricewaterhouseCoopers, was it? Yeah. And they did a study about the teaching and learning of abilities of with learning with virtual reality, and it's so effectively. The people have more focused. People are more connected to the content. There's so many how you say it, like, value to work with virtual reality. Just I want to say, start doing it now. Anybody who's in teaching or in coaching or in therapy or psychologist, look into virtual reality to see how you can use this for your own business, because it's gonna be the thing in the future. It's already there, so start now.
Right, most definitely. So David, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yes, try to do this briefly. We always tend to look at previous forms of narrative entertainment and how they've evolved. And I love the example of going from, say, theater, where it's a fixed perspective, to film, where the early movies were all, huge, heavy cameras with lockdown, and then someone tried to do a zoom, or try to move the camera in, or then introducing the idea of two shots, where you flip between 2 points of view, and we learned this language of storytelling, and we're kind of in the same thing now, going from films to games, and then now from games to VR, or just immersive entertainment in VR, and we don't have the language yet. We have some of it. We're trying to, some of the things which were great in films would be deadly here, where you take someone and move them through a space, and everyone's gonna be throwing up into their headsets, because you can't really do that. And so how do you do these things that it's partly tech, it's partly art. So for people who aren't involved, if you think that you can't do it because you don't have a film or other movie or TV background, it's not true. I think some of the innovations are going to come from people who don't have that heavy weight of experience that they have to draw, that they're forced to draw on, and they can look at this as a brand new palette of things you can use that no one's ever done anything before. So I love what students are doing and people are doing with this. Out of the box creativity. Some of the best stuff I've seen are from young people who are playing with tilt brush, or just doing beautiful things in art that you've never could have imagined before. So the entry point now, you don't need a PC, you don't need anything except a $300 investment in the Oculus Quest and some software. Because you probably want some of these tools like tilt brush or learn about programming. But I'm excited that some great things are going to be coming out in the next few years as it's
Yeah, David,
available.
really good closing point. I would say that what I have found is that filmmakers don't make good VR necessarily because they're still stuck to the director's point of view, and they can't really think about the immersive point of view, which is very different. And every time I've ever tried, even making games, most of the people making films are terrible filmmakers, which is proved by every film company back in the day in the 90s had their own CD-ROM game division, which all failed miserably because they can't think that way, right, David? I mean, so what that means is that there's a great opportunity for new thinkers on how to create shared experiences that everyone can succeed in a positive way for their own outcome. So with that said, I want to thank the fantastic panelists. Sorry, Kathy had to jump. She thinks she had to pick up her son from soccer. Life does go on beyond the virtual world. And thank you to the SPIF Festival and to Ziggy for having this forum for us. And I'd like to continue this conversation. So we'll figure out a way that we're going to do that, because I think it's extremely important for people to hear this information, to understand the opportunities and the new ways of really talking about how design does actually work. I used to teach a class at UCLA, Interactive Design, Why It Works. So I'm very familiar with that, and that would be a whole other session that all of us could do. Okay, with that, thank you again to Dana, David Fox, and David, I would say, David from Maine. All right, with that, we're going to sign off, and thank you so much to the Film Festival. Have a great
Thanks,
rest of the
everyone.
festival.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
you, Mary.
Thank you.